My husband's elder brother passed away, leaving behind his widow and their unborn child. In our past life, we lived together under the same roof, even timed our pregnancies to coincide. She abused that posthumous child daily, yet poured boundless affection on my husband's younger brother and our son. The truth only dawned on me when that child was framed and sent to prison. Turns out she had instructed the nurse to switch the babies on the very day of delivery. Blinded by rage, I confronted them, only to be pushed down the stairs, a cold-blooded attempt to silence me forever. Meanwhile, that wretched family lived lavishly off my inheritance, picture-perfect in their happiness. When I opened my eyes again, consumed by vengeance, I found myself back on that fateful delivery day. A sharp pain shot through my lower body, making me cry out in agony. The nurse's voice rang in my ears, "Push harder, Mama." Unbelievably, I'd been reborn, on the very day I was giving birth, in my past life. My sister-in-law and I were admitted to the same hospital awaiting childbirth. My husband bustled about preparing her delivery kit and cooking elaborate meals specially for her. Meanwhile, I had to make do with her cast-off belongings and eat her leftovers. The stress triggered my premature labor, yet my husband rushed her to the delivery room and waited outside throughout her delivery. I even had to sign my own cesarean consent form. The pain eventually knocked me out cold. When I came to, both my sister-in-law and I had given birth to sons. After that, my sister-in-law spoiled my son Noah rotten while treating her own son Jake with nothing but harsh words and beatings. My heart went out to poor Jake, and I wanted to lend him a hand, but my husband snapped at me, "Just focus on Noah." As the younger sister-in-law, you've got no business meddling in your elder sister-in-law's affairs. Seeing how utterly spoiled Noah had become under his mother and my husband's indulgence, I gave up trying to intervene with other people's children. I quit my job to tutor Noah full-time at home, determined to mold him into a national college entrance exam top scorer. Meanwhile, my own son Jake was forced by his aunt to drop out of middle school and got sent to work in a sweatshop. He developed lung cancer from dust poisoning at such a young age. Later, Noah killed someone in a drunk driving accident. In a panic, my sister-in-law dragged Jake from his sickbed to take the blame for Noah. For my child's sake, I even knelt before Jake begging him to save my son. I was the only one in the Lee family who showed Jake any kindness, and I even covered his surgery expenses. True to his word, he repaid my kindness by taking the fall for Jake. In the end, he took his own life right there in prison. Then one day I came home early from a business trip and heard Noah call my sister-in-law Mom. Then Noah snapped, "I hate Lily. When are we finally going to get rid of her?" I completely lost it and stormed into the room demanding an explanation. The three of them froze momentarily before my sister-in-law sneered triumphantly. "So what if you know? Your real son is already dead." Noah even pointed at me and yelled accusations. "All these years you made me study while you wouldn't let me be with Maya, wouldn't allow KFC or bubble tea, and refused to fund my startup. Now I finally understand. You were never really my mother. You never loved me. You just wanted a presentable son, yet you took Jake out for KFC and bubble tea, even paid for his cancer treatment. Blood really is thicker than water." Liam adjusted his glasses. "Lily, I never loved you. It's always been my sister-in-law, but your family's money was my ticket to success. After all these years of Maggie's suffering in silence, we've finally made it through." Drop dead, the three of them pushed me out the window. Later they told the police I'd accidentally fallen through the window. Then the three of them lived happily ever after with my inheritance. Memories of my past life flooded back, filling me with overwhelming hatred. With one final push, the child who'd been delivered by C-section in my previous life came naturally this time. I couldn't hold on any longer and blacked out. When I came to, both my sister-in-law and I had been wheeled into the same hospital room. My sister-in-law was still unconscious, and my husband gazed at her with worried, loving eyes. Gritting my teeth, I called out, "Honey." He turned impatiently. "What?" I outright yelled. "Get me a damn glass of water. I'm thirsty." "What are you staring at? Is that your wife?" "That's your sister-in-law. Are you trying to commit incest?" The nurse administering Maggie's drip widened her eyes in shock and exclaimed, "Isn't this your wife?" Liam's face turned pale then flushed crimson as he shuffled out reluctantly with a water cup. Utterly humiliated, our ward is on the 3rd floor, while the water dispenser room is on the ground floor. The moment the nurse left, I gritted through the pain and swapped the two babies. Thank God Liam had picked the outfits himself. He'd never spare decent clothes for my son, but couldn't be bothered to waste time choosing either, so he'd meticulously selected outfits for his sister-in-law's son, then casually asked the clerk to wrap identical ones. My heart hammered wildly. Luckily, Liam was dawdling outside God knows where and still hadn't returned. Only after swapping the babies did I finally feel at ease. Since I was premature, my sister-in-law scheduled a C-section to match my timing, leaving her with a long scar across her belly. Soon after, as the anesthesia wore off, my sister-in-law came to and glanced at the baby before giving me a subtly smug look. What a coincidence. delivering babies on the same day. I smirked coldly and ignored her, feeling awkward. My sister-in-law fiddled with her phone, and within moments Liam returned. The glass he'd been holding had mysteriously vanished. "You're awake, sis. Would you like something to eat?" Liam asked eagerly. Maggie glanced over. "What would you like to eat, sis?" "I'll have Liam go get it." Seeing Maggie's smug expression, I asked her, "Sis, is Liam my husband or yours? Why do I need your permission for him to buy me food?" Liam's face darkened. "Lily, do you even hear yourself? She's my sister-in-law. My brother's gone. Is it wrong for me to look after her, all the way into bed?" Liam exclaimed in disbelief. "What nonsense are you spouting?" His sister-in-law flushed with rage. "Lily, have you lost your tongue? What do you mean by taking care in bed? I'm your sister-in-law. Are you trying to ruin me?" Liam looked at me with utter disappointment. "You've always been paranoid like this. When I work late with female colleagues, you assume I'm cheating. When I dine with friends, you bombard me with a dozen check-in calls per hour. Now you're even suspecting me of something with my own sister-in-law when I'm just helping her. Do you even know what matters most in a relationship? Trust, space. Keep this up and I'll divorce you." Liam knew I loved him enough to cut ties with my family for him, so he played reverse psychology, certain I wouldn't make another scene. I chuckled. "Fine, let's get divorced. If you'd just apologize to your sister-in-law." Liam stared at me incredulously. "What did you just say? You want a divorce? Wasn't it you who brought up divorce? Fine, let's go file the papers right now." After a long pause, Liam chuckled. "Listen, Lily. Playing hard to get won't work. Don't push your luck. Just apologize to your sister-in-law, and I'll forgive you." Maggie chimed in with fake concern. "Sis, don't be rash. Who'd want a divorced woman fresh from childbirth?" This only reinforced Liam's belief that I was playing hard to get his own signature move. The hospital room door burst open as a burly man stormed in. "Who says nobody wants her, even if that were true? Our family can damn well afford to support a woman and child, bro." I called out, "Too." Liam straightened up and asked, "Did you invite him here?" Liam was a poor phoenix risen from rural hardship, handsome and hardworking. That's why I fell for him and insisted on being together. Coming from wealth, Liam initially played hard to get with his cold shoulder routine, claiming we were from different worlds. Who else in this world could remain so untouched by money? It only strengthened my resolve to be with him. So I acted like a lovesick fool, spending money on Liam and pulling strings to get him resources. Liam would always say coldly through pursed lips, "I'll pay you back every penny." He even wrote me an IOU. He carried himself with unyielding pride toward both me and my family, never mincing words nor showing undue deference. At first, my parents thought Liam might not be your typical social climber, but over time they realized his arrogance wasn't backed by competence, forbidding our relationship. When Liam tried to break up with me, I became utterly obsessed, cutting ties with my family just to stay with him. My family reluctantly gave in, but wisely kept the upper hand. Both our home and car remain legally under my parents' names. "Let's go get divorced," I said. My brother took out a furry hat and put it on me, then wheeled over the wheelchair. Seeing we were serious, Liam panicked. "Lily, I only mentioned divorce in the heat of the moment, after everything we've been through. How could you actually leave me? Hurry up or the civil affairs office will close. Don't tell me you're just clinging to our family's money." Nothing infuriates Liam more than people suggesting he's only with me for my family's money. His face twisted with rage as he snarled, "Let's divorce right now. Whoever backs out is a damn coward." His business is already thriving with 2 major projects underway that could net him over $200 million upon completion. He does want my family's fortune. He just needs to wait until our son comes of age to claim what's under my name. The asset division happened swiftly. He hypocritically offered me company shares right in front of my brother. No way was I taking that bait. Their company was about to implode. In my past life, I'd only resolved the crisis by pulling family strings. This time around, let's see how his pathetic business survives without my help. Back home, I had his and his sister-in-law's belongings cleared out, then hired professional postpartum care for myself. My brother asked me to move back home, but I refused. Liam was furious when he found out I'd thrown their stuff out, and rushed back to haul it away. I had someone stop him. "Lily, we're already divorced. What are you playing at? Let me make this clear, even if you regret it now, it's too late." Sitting in my wheelchair, I told him, "Leave the car. My parents bought it for me." Liam tossed me the keys with a dark expression. "Who said I wanted your damn car? I was just returning it." That very afternoon, Liam drove Maggie over in his luxury car and smugly moved into the house they'd bought next door. My guess, they wanted front row seats to watch their kid. I couldn't care less. Let them stare. I'm curious to see what kind of life Jake will have under his parents' care this time around. Right on cue that evening, sudden wails erupted from next door. followed by Maggie's frantic footsteps pounding toward my front door. The violent knocking startled my sleeping son awake, sending him into terrified sobs. I swung the door open with visible irritation. Maggie stood at the doorway in her silk pajamas, wearing an impatient expression as she said, "My son's hurt and Liam's not home. Could you drive us to the hospital?" She studied my face intently, as if searching for any trace of sympathy, seeing my completely impassive expression throughout. Her disappointment was palpable. I replied flatly, "Fine, go get the kid ready." When she brought Jake out from home, I saw his right shin was broken, bone protruding through torn flesh with blood everywhere. Despite hating the kid, witnessing such a gruesome scene sent an involuntary chill down my spine. Without hesitation, I grabbed the car keys and drove them both to the hospital. Jake wailed nonstop during the ride, so I cranked up the stereo in irritation. Upon arriving at the hospital, Jake was rushed to the emergency room. Soon after, a doctor emerged saying Jake had lost too much blood and urgently needed a transfusion, but the hospital was running low on type A blood, asking if anyone could donate. Maggie quickly shook her head. "No, I'm his mother. Immediate family members can't donate blood." I also shook my head. "I'm type B blood, Lily. I thought you were type A." Maggie suddenly turned to me with a horrified look. I said earnestly, "You remembered wrong. Don't you recall that family checkup before Liam and I divorced, when you joked that Jake and I were both type B?" Maggie suddenly remembered that day when she and Liam had mocked me. "How could Jake possibly be type A? Isn't he yours and Liam's?" Maggie murmured. "What did you say?" I pretended not to hear. Maggie quickly shut her mouth. I didn't say anything. The doctor's memory failed. But fortunately a man nearby happened to have type A blood and donated 200 cubic centimeters. While several medical staff contributed another 1,000 cubic centimeters, just enough. Maggie paced outside the ER, putting on a show of maternal concern, but I knew suspicion had taken root in her mind. Unable to hold back any longer, she soon dashed to the stairwell to call Liam. "Honey, did you really swap mine and Lily's babies that day?" "Of course, I did it myself. Why would I lie? What's wrong? Did Lily find out we switched the babies?" "The doctor just said that little bastard has type A blood. But both you and Lily are type B. I'm the only one with type A." Maggie shuddered randomly. "That child, it couldn't possibly be ours, could it?" "What? No way. Impossible. I switched the babies myself. There's no way Lily could have found out." After a moment's thought, Maggie's eyes widened in realization. "Wait, is that child proof of Lily's affair?" Liam recalled how often I'd worked late with male colleagues during my pregnancy and instantly bought this nonsense. "That bitch actually cuckolded me. I'll make sure neither of them gets away with this." Maggie quickly tried to calm him down. "Don't act rashly," she said. "Once our son inherits the Shin family fortune, we'll have plenty of time to deal with those two." Seeing Maggie hang up the phone, I hurried back to the emergency room entrance. Moments later, Maggie returned with exaggerated grace, shooting me a look full of contempt and resentment. I could only shake my head in disbelief. Poor Jake was really out of luck. They actually managed to explain away the blood type discrepancy. Jake stayed in the hospital for a week before coming home, only to hear heart-wrenching infant wails from next door on his return. I peeked out the door. Their entrance was wide open, clearly wanting me to see and hear my son being tormented. Little did they know, that wasn't my son, it was theirs. The child's face and arms were covered in blisters, with steam still rising from the spilled water on the floor. When I opened the door, Liam gave me a hollow smile and said, the cup slipped from my hand, scalding water spilled all over him. After learning Jake was illegitimate, he'd been itching for revenge, but divorced from me, he couldn't lay hands on me freely, and with Jake hospitalized, beating a child there was impossible. Now that Jake's back, he's finally found his chance to vent that pent-up rage. 3. That man is terrifying. I shuddered involuntarily, but this is no longer my concern. Had I not been reborn, my son would have suffered this cruelty instead. This never happened in my past life. My defiance probably made them despise me, and my child, even more. Liam and Maggie showed up uninvited at our son's 1-month celebration. When Liam learned I'd named our child Lucas, he pulled me aside. Lily, that's my son. He carries the Lee family name. You're coming with me right now to change his name. I just said one thing to him. Oh, why don't you take custody then? He immediately shut up and walked away sulking. First, he doesn't have time to take care of the kid, and Maggie's just a pretty village girl. Our child wouldn't turn out as exceptional under their care as under mine. Second, he's afraid if I lose custody and remarry to have more kids, Lucas wouldn't get his hands on all the inheritance. Liam returned to the banquet table sulkily, shooting Maggie a meaningful glance. Maggie hurried over, with her fair complexion and slender figure clad in a light blue cheapao. She wore only a simple silver hairpin yet beamed as she presented her son with an imperial jade amulet. How could you give such an extravagant gift? You and Liam aren't exactly living comfortably these days, I protested half-heartedly. Maggie smiled gently. Don't say that. Though I may not come from as privileged a background as you, I know your son deserves nothing but the finest. Just look at what your relatives and friends gave you. My gift is nothing special. True, I'm a Shin woman, and everyone at this banquet is loaded. They're handing out houses, cars, even company shares. There's a grandpa gifting stock. An imperial jade amulet really doesn't compare. I asked her, where's your son? Aren't you throwing a 1-month celebration? My sister-in-law replied indifferently that Jinx killed his own father. Why would I celebrate him? Consider it merciful that I even chose to give birth to him. But everyone knew that child was actually Liam's, the same Liam who conspired with Maggie to murder his own brother. Liam's brother came home from overtime at 11 p.m. only for Maggie to throw a tantrum demanding cupcakes when he suggested getting them tomorrow. She claimed it wasn't her craving but their unborn son's. His brother had no choice but to drive the sabotaged car with cut brake lines to get it for her. The car ended up plunging into a river, drowning him alive. Liam and Maggie cuddled their son affectionately after delivering gifts, only handing him back to me when their arms grew sore. Your son is absolutely gorgeous. I wish I could have such a handsome boy. Her words earned unanimous approval from those around her. After entertaining guests for a while, I felt exhausted and took the kids home first. Leaving the rest to my parents, my sister-in-law followed along, cradling a frail baby boy with sparse hair who looked sickly and weak enough to be blown over by a breeze. There's trouble at Liam's company. Are you heading home now? Could you give me a ride? I quickly said, is this your child? Why so thin and small? Don't stand in that drafty spot. Get in the car and I'll take you home. In Liam's past life, his company's scandal broke today. Their product was exposed as plagiarized. Liam urgently pulled me away from the baby's full moon banquet to ask my parents for help, only to stay behind himself entertaining guests with Maggie at the hotel. The reason Maggie and Liam have been living so modestly lately is that they've poured all their money into the project. Maggie chuckled at my words and said, this is my son, born under an unlucky star, but what can I do? A mother's got to raise her child. Every single day. Liam and Maggie would call Jake that wretched little bastard. Once when Aunt Zhang passed by and couldn't stomach their behavior, she scolded them. This only made them double down, convinced she'd report their misdeeds to me. They knew full well I wouldn't spare sympathy for the child, but when the truth finally comes to light, every day of these years will feel like a knife twisting in my gut. I lowered my head, gently patting Lucas in my arms, my heart heavy with sorrow. So Liam hated me this much all along. The cruel irony was that the child he mistreated wasn't my son, but his own, born from his affair with his sister-in-law. Her face still wore that girlish smile as she spoke, delicate fingers tracing the scarred skin, but perhaps her touch was too rough. The child whimpered and began to cry. The faint crying sounded like a kitten's mewl, barely audible before fading completely after feeble struggles. I remained silent. She chuckled darkly. Don't think me cruel, this child's cursed. He killed his father before drawing breath, and his birth cost me my womb through hemorrhaging. I dare not love him, nor can I abandon him. Raising him like some stray cat or dog is all I can do. And Zhang hugged Lucas indignantly. What nonsense about jinxes. That's pure superstition. How could a modern woman like you believe such things? Maggie ignored her, keeping her eyes fixed on me, focused on driving. I didn't respond, so she jabbed Jake harder instead. She only stopped poking when he burst into loud sobs. As I got off the car, I heard her mutter, so much for mother-child bonds. It's all lies. Liam came back that evening looking utterly devastated. Soon, waves of crying erupted from their place. I polished off 2 bowls of rice to the soundtrack of their tantrums. Eventually, the downstairs neighbors couldn't take it anymore and came up to shut down the noise. Liam and Maggie sold their RV and all the family jewelry to pay off debts, leaving them no choice but to rent an apartment in our neighborhood. Yet Maggie often dropped by my place. I was delighted to see her being so kind to my son, so I always welcomed her visits. Gradually, both Lucas and Jake grew up. Lucas started early education at 3 and was enrolled directly in our family-owned kindergarten at 4. I asked Maggie if she'd like to get her son admitted there too. She immediately waved her hands in refusal, saying the tuition there was too expensive. They simply couldn't afford it. I knew she'd never spend that much money sending my son to such a fancy school, otherwise I wouldn't have brought it up in the first place. After her refusal, I didn't press the matter further. Later I learned she didn't enroll Jake, who at 5 still looked like a scrawny kitten with patchy fur, a ruined left cheek, and scars all over, until he was 5, sending him to an unlicensed kindergarten near their apartment. Maggie said with unwavering determination, a bright child can thrive anywhere. Look at Liam, he couldn't even attend kindergarten back then, yet he's doing just fine now. I clicked my tongue in disapproval. Give me a break, Liam's practically bankrupt. Scrambling everywhere begging for projects, they think I'm clueless, but mutual contacts have already spilled the beans, and did I really come back from Rebirth just to settle scores with them? I started my own company and leveraged my knowledge advantage from the past life to snatch countless projects from Liam. The company's barely 2 or 3 years old, but with our family connections and my insider information, it's already hit a market valuation of $1.5 billion. Let's be real, Jake was never cut out for academics. In our previous life, Liam only scraped through high school admissions because I rode his ass daily with relentless pressure. That day I left work early to pick up a kid from kindergarten, only to find Maggie beating Jake in the courtyard on my way back. How pathetic can you be? What possessed you to hit that kid? Maggie slapped Jake across the face. Jake's frail body crumpled from the blow. Through tears, he pleaded. He called me a monster first. Mom, please don't hit me. Watching him tremble with fear, I felt a pang of pity, just basic human compassion, but I wouldn't speak up for him. He had this coming. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Liam and Maggie mistreated Jake. Many took pity on him, defending him or sneaking him food. Turns out Jake faked stomachaches to extort money after eating. He even sneaked trash into the homes of those who defended him, all because he envied their kids. Now when he's getting beaten again, not a single neighbor steps up to speak for him. Maggie roared, "Aren't you just a monster? Look at your own face, you're afraid of being judged, and now they're demanding compensation from me." The thought of that family demanding money from her made her shudder with visceral pain. Truth be told, they could barely afford meat these days. Maggie started pummeling Jake, screaming, "This is all your fault, you jinx, you freak." Exhausted from work, Liam came home and walked right past them without a second glance. Maggie threw a tantrum, leaving the child battered and bleeding. The sight of the wailing kid made many bystanders visibly uncomfortable, yet no one dared to speak up. Eventually, someone couldn't take it anymore and secretly called the police. Liam ordered Jake to beg the officers not to arrest his mother, torn between obeying Liam and preventing Maggie's detention. Jake hesitated. He clung to the officer's leg, throwing a hysterical fit, screaming, kicking, and rolling on the ground to block Maggie's arrest. The cops couldn't do much. After all, it was her own child she was hitting. They just gave her a lecture and left. Maggie's eyes gleamed with triumph when she saw me. "What's wrong, Lily?" Feeling sorry for him. "Don't waste your pity. He's just worthless trash, undeserving of anyone's sympathy." With that, she grabbed a handful of dirt from the ground and moved to press it onto Jake's wound. "Let me stop the bleeding," she sneered. I stood frozen as Liam chimed in, "Mind your own business. My wife knows how to handle the kid. Your only job right now is taking care of our son." Jake wailed in pain, but Maggie remained unmoved. With visible dissatisfaction, she pursed her lips and dropped the child on the ground, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "What's wrong, Lily?" Feeling sorry for this brat. "Got a heartache?" "Not really. But I'm starting to doubt that whole mother-child bond," saying, "Neither Maggie nor Liam seems to have any chest pain." I stayed silent. She strode off with Liam while Jake obediently trailed behind them, but when Jake picked himself up from the ground, I saw pure venom burning in his eyes. Just remembering how he wanted to kill me in our past life over video games and junk food makes me wonder what fate awaits Liam and Maggie this time. Yet I've raised my son well this time around. Drawing from past experience, I occasionally indulge him with junk food despite my reservations. Lucas has an equally sensitive stomach as Jake did in his past life, and ended up with diarrhea the night he tried eating junk food. Thankfully I stopped him from overindulging. Some medicine fixed him right up. He's sworn off junk food ever since. I'll always let him explore, stumble, and get hurt, but I'll forever be his safety net, unlike my previous life where I coddled children like precious jewels. Lucas was bright and disciplined, excelling academically throughout. He developed a passion for piano, achieving grade 5 certification by middle school. Maggie and Liam doted on him excessively, constantly bringing gifts. They'd scrimp on food and clothes just to buy him iPhones and MacBooks. Fortunately, my son had good sense and never became addicted, so I didn't confiscate them, scarred by facial burns and his timid nature. Jake shuffled along walls with his head perpetually bowed. Yet beneath that meek exterior lurked something twisted. I caught him torturing stray cats behind our complex again. His eyes burned with venomous envy when they met mine. His own mother and Liam showered my son with affection while treating him like a punching bag. Fearing he might harm my son, I moved to another place that's also closer to my child's school, for, when Maggie and Liam wanted to visit, I explicitly told them not to disclose our location to Jake. I worried his jealousy over their kindness toward my son might turn violent. They agreed instantly, still believing the boy was their own and sharing my concerns. Why go to such lengths? Because I want them to feel what I felt in my past life. The kinder they are to my son now, the deeper their regret will be when the truth comes out, and the harsher they treat Jake, the more it'll haunt them later, at 15. My son Lucas got admitted to the city's top high school and was placed in the elite class. Liam and Maggie sent over another round of extravagant gifts. After they finally left reluctantly, Lucas asked me, "What's really going on between Dad and Aunt Mabel? Why are they so nice to me but treat their own son so terribly?" He disliked Liam and Maggie, maintaining only the most basic courtesy toward them. Not even trips to amusement parks or KFC with them could sway him. Partly because he despised their child abuse, and partly because Lucas had long mastered traveling abroad with bodyguards, I never missed a single school-organized study trip to Switzerland or the US. My son suffered too much in his past life. In this lifetime, I'll compensate him doubly as long as it doesn't interfere with his studies at this stage. Show him the world and let him experience life. Keeping his studies undisturbed is about ensuring he can build his own future and be capable of inheriting my estate. His horizons have long outgrown simple pleasures like amusement parks and fast food. After some thought, I told Lucas everything about my past life exactly as it happened. I was worried Lucas wouldn't believe me, but to my surprise, he actually bought such an unbelievable story. He hugged me tightly, crying, "Mom, I'll always love you." My heart swelled with warmth. And I warned him not to be swayed by Maggie and Liam's sweet talk. He clenched his fist. "They got you killed. How could I possibly fall for their sugar-coated bullets?" Never mentioning that he too died because of them. Jake's grades were abysmal. After failing high school entrance exams, they shipped him off to a sweatshop. Finding a sweatshop in Shanghai's no easy feat. They really went the extra mile. Rumor has it they work 18-hour shifts with nothing but watery gruel to eat. Though his salary was decent, Maggie made the boss deposit it directly into her account. This boss employs child labor, operates unsafe facilities, and constantly skirts legal boundaries. That's why they've hired so many security guards to patrol the factory. Unlike obedient Lucas, Jake tried to run away but got his legs broken and was dragged back. That boss only compensated Maggie $30,000. Still wearing her shabby clothes, Maggie immediately bought gifts for Lucas. Lucas accepted them without hesitation. Liam couldn't help feeling resentful. After years of being squeezed out by corporate giants, his own company had long gone under, forcing him to work for others now. "At least save some for ourselves," Maggie retorted. "He's our flesh and blood. We've already failed him by being absent all these years. What's wrong with spending some money?" Liam had no comeback. One day he came running to me. "Lily, I regret it. I never should have agreed to divorce you. I still love you. Haven't you been single all these years because you were waiting for me? Let's get back together, give Lucas a complete family." Ironically, even after our divorce, he never made things official with Maggie. They're still stuck in this ambiguous relationship. People tried setting them up with others, but they'd refuse, yet they won't tie the knot either. No one understands what's going on. Maggie had appeared behind him at some point, watching the scene with gritted teeth. When she noticed me looking, she forced a strained smile. Liam was about to confess his feelings when I dodged him. "Sorry, my boyfriend's here to pick me up." The tall, handsome Noah took my hand. "Why are you working so late today?" I smiled. "Had some unfinished business. Since I'm off tomorrow, let's take Lucas and Zoe out." Noah's also remarried. His first wife passed from illness. We actually met in our class group chat. So trendy. Tried online dating for kicks. Liam stared at me in disbelief. "You're seeing someone, Lily. How could you betray me? How disgusting. We've been divorced for over a decade. Betrayal doesn't even enter into it." I fronted him in disgust. "Who the hell are you?" I'm, he stammered, unable to get the words out, watching as Noah and I drove away. That night he called me. "Come back, Lily. I still love you. Just break up with him, and we can go back to how things were." "I don't believe you'd fall for someone else," I snapped back. "What the hell are you barking about? What makes you think you're even half the man my boyfriend is? How dare you ask me to dump him for you?" He flew into a rage and spat out, "You'll regret this, Lily." Then came the news that he and Maggie were getting married. Seeing I still hadn't made a move, he finally caved and registered their marriage with Maggie, though they skipped the wedding banquet, while everyone had long suspected their relationship. It's only now been officially confirmed. Their neighborhood became rife with gossip, leaving the couple too embarrassed to show their faces much. Noah asked me while cooking in the kitchen, "Do you want to get married?" After some thought, I replied, "We're both financially stable and have our own kids. Let's just stay together without getting married. All my assets will go to my son, even though I'm very fond of Zoe, but after all, she's not my biological daughter. I don't want to be tied down by marriage anymore." Noah nodded in agreement. At age 18, Lucas became the national college entrance exam top scorer with 716 points, outperforming Jake's previous life score by 14 points. Reporters and admissions officers crowded at Lucas's school gate to interview him. Just then, Liam and Maggie pushed their way in. Maggie grabbed Lucas's hand, laughing through tears. "Lucas, you're actually my son." Lucas shook free from their grasp and moved to stand beside me. Maggie didn't care anymore. She was trembling with anticipation, waiting to see me break down in despair. Back when Lily and I gave birth at the same hospital sharing a ward, the nurses mixed up our newborn sons. Her gaze burned with malice and anticipation. Hardly surprising. During the recent bull market, Liam went all in, even borrowing from loan sharks, only for the stocks to crash the moment he invested. With debt collectors hounding him, he nearly jumped off a building himself. But the thought of having a son who held shares in the Shin family business reignited his hope. Couldn't Lucas just snap his fingers to settle this trivial matter? But I just watched them silently without speaking. Their expressions gradually froze. How can you be so heartless? The reporter suddenly caught on and hastily asked, "Madam, could you elaborate on what you just said?" Maggie paused before speaking deliberately. "Lily and I gave birth at the same hospital years ago. The nurses mixed up our babies. Today we found out through hospital matching tests, after Jake was diagnosed with lung cancer, that he's not my biological son, he's Lily's child." She emphasized the word cancer. Seeing my expressionless face, she shouted, "Say something. Are you abandoning your own son? He's your flesh and blood. You can't possibly turn your back on him now that he has cancer. You're his birth mother. Even if you never raised him, he still carries the Shin family blood." I let out a shaky breath, trembling with equal excitement. I asked them, "Did you really go for the compatibility test that early?" Maggie looked guilty, but Liam retorted defiantly, "Of course, he's my son. How could I not care?" I said, "If you'd done the test, how could you not know they're your biological sons?" The reporters gasped again, bombarding us with questions. Maggie froze, asking me, "What do you mean?" She panicked and blurted, "The nurses mixed up the babies. That's your son. Lucas is actually my son. Ms. Lily, are you trying to disown your own son now? Ms. Lily, do you favor Lucas more as your successor? Your biological son is hospitalized. Aren't you going to care? This is huge. The national exam top scorer, Shanghai's Shin family, and the real versus fake air drama. Every single point is explosive," I continued. "I knew the nurses mixed up our babies on delivery day 5, so when you went to get water, I switched them back myself." Under their stunned gazes, I added, "You've been way too harsh on Jake all these years. He's actually your biological son. Maggie, you disfigured him with boiling water, abused him daily with beatings and curses, shipped him off to a sweatshop right after middle school where the boss broke his legs. And now he's battling cancer. So you too tortured Jake like that just because you thought he was my son. Why, how could you do this? How could you live with yourselves?" I sobbed into Lucas's arms. Lucas patted my shoulder reassuringly. "Mom, don't be upset. You've been so kind to Jake, bringing him food and drinks, even giving him money sometimes. But having parents like that was his misfortune, not your fault, actually. It wasn't me who sent those provisions. Aunt Jeanne couldn't bear seeing him like that." I couldn't explain my past life connection to her, so I just let her be. Thankfully, Jake's twisted personality eventually made Aunt Jeanne keep her distance from him. Lucas is clever, seizing this opportunity to polish my public image and generate more buzz for our Shin family. The reporters gasped and immediately turned to ask them both, "So you mistreated your son because you thought he was Ms. Lily's child? Were you after the Shin family fortune? May I ask why you harbor such hatred toward Miss Lily? That sounds like you're blaming the victim here." Maggie's expression froze instantly. What did you say?" I repeated. "I knew the babies got switched, so I changed them back myself. I've switched the babies back. Jake is your biological son." My sister-in-law stared at me blankly before letting out a blood-curdling scream. She lunged at me, shrieking, "Lily, you bitch. You knew all along we switched the babies. Why didn't you say anything? Did you enjoy watching us abuse our own flesh and blood? My son, my boy." The bodyguards restrained her while Liam collapsed on the ground nearby, looking like he'd aged a decade in mere moments. "No way. This can't be happening. It shouldn't be like this. How did you know we switched sons?" A voice came from outside the crowd. "Is what you're saying true, Lily? Did you switch me and Lucas back?" The crowd parted as Jake limped in from outside, his grotesque, twisted face made the reporters gasp. His eyes burned with hatred. "Why, this wasn't how it was supposed to be. In our last life, you never switched us back." Seeing the venom in his eyes, I suddenly realized he'd been reborn too. With all these reporters here and many broadcasting live, I absolutely must keep a straight face. I pinched my thigh black and blue before putting on an agonized expression, saying, "What nonsense are you spouting? Past lives, present lives." I noticed the birthmark behind Lucas's ear right after giving birth. That's how I knew the babies got switched and had them swapped back. Lucas chimed in, "All your suffering comes from your biological parents. What's that got to do with my mom? Have you forgotten how they treated you? How dare you blame my mother? Did you actually want them to swap us? You're just as despicable." Jake trembled violently, his eyes burning with hatred as he glared at Lucas. It was terrifying. If the bodyguards hadn't restrained him, I'm certain he would have lunged to kill both me and Lucas. My boy, this is all my fault. Everything's my fault. Maggie sobbed desperately while clutching Jake. Liam stared at Jake's mutilated body in utter devastation. Jake's fists clenched with audible cracking sounds. Then he pulled a fruit knife from beneath his hospital gown and plunged it into Maggie's chest. Before anyone could react, he shoved Maggie aside and began stabbing repeatedly into Liam's abdomen. Oh my God, murder. The reporters and admissions officers quickly retreated behind the bodyguards. Even the bodyguards took a startled step backward. Regaining their composure, they rushed forward, kicking the knife from Jake's hand and pinning him to the ground. At 18 years old and weighing less than 100 pounds, Jake was effortlessly restrained by a single bodyguard's grip. Police and ambulances arrived shortly after. Officers took Jake away while Maggie and Liam were loaded into an ambulance. Maggie died instantly from the stab wound to her heart, while Liam clung to life for about 15 minutes in the ambulance before bleeding out just short of the hospital. Jake was sentenced to death after his public killing, broadcast live nationwide, sparked national outrage. Deemed beyond medical help, he was sent straight to prison. The day before the execution, I took Lucas to see Jake. With only a few strands of hair left and that ghastly pallor, Jake looked every bit the monster. I know you've been reborn. Well, so have I. I woke up reborn on the very day I gave birth. If you hadn't been so heartless in your past life, you wouldn't have ended up like this. Jake wailed hysterically. I'm your son too. Last lifetime you cooked for me, told bedtime stories, helped with my homework. How could you be so cruel? I sneered. So you do remember how good I was to you. Then why did you try to kill me? You're nothing but a beast, a feral dog that can't be tamed. This is exactly what you deserve. With that, I turned and walked away with Lucas. Then came a commotion. Calm down, 09586, remain calm. I should have been the top scorer in the Gaokao. I'm Lily's true heir. Damn you both, Lily and Lucas. In the next life, I'll make sure you both pay dearly. Good. The unrepentant don't get second chances. If they're reborn at all, it's only to settle old debts. Story 2. In our past life, on the day my sister and I chose our beastkin partners, she selected a nimble white tiger, while I was left with only a frail, dying python. Within a year of marrying the python, I bore his offspring. The following year, the python miraculously survived his heavenly tribulation and transformed into a golden dragon, making me the dragon queen who commanded universal reverence. Meanwhile, my sister's white tiger grew weaker by the day after their marriage, collapsing during the clan succession tournament and never recovering his former vigor. In the end, I won the competition, but my sister flew into such a rage that she not only poisoned my wine but also threw my child off the cliff. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the day of choosing an Orsish mate. The moment I saw my sister rushing toward the little basilisk, I knew she had been reborn too. But little did she know, being the Dragon Queen isn't as glorious as it seems. In our family, every woman must choose an orc husband upon coming of age to enhance magical prowess. All candidates are meticulously selected by our servants before presentation. As daughters of Liang's most prominent household, my sister and I had orcs practically breaking down doors for a chance to be chosen. A stabbing pain shot through my head when suddenly, a crystal-clear voice rang out, "Father, Mother. I want this little python." Blinking into focus, I saw my sister clutching the feeble serpent, throwing a full-blown tantrum to make the poor creature her husband. "Lila dear, why don't you reconsider? Look how majestic that white tiger is," Mother coaxed my sister. "Indeed, that python looks rather sickly. It suits your younger sister better. Who even allowed this creature into our manor?" Father chimed in, already threatening to punish the servant who brought the snake. I lowered my head with a bitter smile. Even after rebirth, Father and Mother still doted on my sister while treating me like thin air. "Father, Mother, since elder sister favors the python, let her have it. I'd like to choose the white tiger instead." 1. Brand's bright eyes sparkled when he heard I'd chosen him, a delicate blush creeping across his handsome face. Father slapped me across the face. "What wicked thoughts fill your mind? Must you bring ruin upon your sister?" Father fumed, his beard bristling with rage, yet my sister persisted stubbornly, weeping and demanding to form a pact with the serpent god Ba. In the end, our parents couldn't withstand her persistence and permitted her to form a pact with the serpent, while I bonded with Bran. As my sister stepped through the doorway, she cast a glance back at me, her eyes brimming with haughty defiance. "Do be careful, little sister," she tittered behind her handkerchief. "That white tiger of yours might have some congenital defects." I understood her implication all too well. In our past life, the tiger's declining health had made her believe it was inherently flawed. Watching her triumphant expression, I simply smiled faintly without a word. "Sister, your best days are yet to come. Only I truly understand what that boss snake really is. In past lives, people only knew the boss snake successfully transcended tribulations to become a dragon. unaware of the true reason, mistaking it for the creature's innate bloodline power. Not so fast. The spiritual power behind the basilisk's draconic transformation actually originates from me. Our Qi family is the foremost noble house of Dalian. Our ancestors bore the innate sacred furnace constitution. Dual cultivation with such practitioners can double a partner's cultivation prowess. A single drop of heart's blood can awaken latent bloodline potential, granting profound cultivation breakthroughs. Beyond our prestigious lineage, countless beastkin flock to my sisters and me, coveting contracts with sacred furnace practitioners. In my generation, I became the second divine furnace saint in our lineage. The saint's physique appears ordinary until dual cultivation, revealing its profound mysteries only to cultivation partners. When the Bash demon discovered my saintly constitution in our past life, instead of revering me, he imprisoned me in his dungeon, forcing daily dual cultivation. Slap. Worse still, he sent minions to drain a bowl of my heart's blood every week. His torment left me wasting away, reduced to playing the dutiful wife in public, a mere prop for his ascension to the dragon throne. Even when I carried the basilisk's child, he showed no mercy, forcing dual cultivation against my will. On my delivery day, he took a bowl of my heart's blood. I barely glimpsed our newborn before the basilisk snatched it away, plunging me back into perpetual darkness. By the succession ceremony, I was already at death's door. My sister's poison merely hastened the inevitable. Since my sister wants to experience my past life so badly, let her enjoy it to the fullest. I brought Bren back to my courtyard. As the least favored daughter in the family, I naturally got the most remote quarters. The only reason I could choose Bren was thanks to my status as the legitimate heir. With the contract enforcer watching, I couldn't afford to embarrass the main family line. Though the courtyard is secluded, I find peace in its quietude. From now on, you're mine, I said, patting Bren on the back. As Bren approached, the unmistakable scent of youth enveloped me. Bren radiated warmth, filling me with an inexplicable sense of security, yet I still pushed him away. Visions of my past life imprisoned by the Bash serpent remained vivid. I couldn't risk revealing my sacred furnace constitution so soon. Pressing a finger lightly against Bren's chest, I murmured, "Though we've formed a pact, Bran, I'd prefer to know you better before dual cultivation." A pair of warm hands enveloped my icy fingertips, flooding my body with relentless warmth. Bran's bright eyes stared intently at me before giving a firm nod. "Good. I don't like disobedient children. Go play by yourself for now." With that, I turned and retreated to my room, though I've escaped that venomous serpent's influence in this life. I still haven't uncovered why Bran's health deteriorated so drastically in our past incarnation. The Tiger clan is naturally robust, even enduring our sister's relentless beatings and forced training shouldn't have reduced him to such frailty. 2. Outside the window, Bren was joyfully chasing butterflies in the garden. I swore to myself that in this lifetime, I would save Bren no matter what. My husband Mara is undoubtedly the strongest. Ever since that day I made my resolution, I've rarely stayed in my own courtyard. I practically buried myself in the endless sea of ancient tomes in the archives, desperately searching for the reason behind Bran's weakness all those years ago. Persistence pays off. After a full month, I finally uncovered the truth. Ancient texts record, an unawakened white tiger resembles ordinary tigers, but awakening requires boundless spiritual energy. Without sufficient nourishment, it shall perish. Bren is likely descended from the legendary white tiger divine beast, not merely an albino tiger. Before his bloodline awakens, he'll require massive spiritual energy. Insufficient supply would lead to fatal exhaustion. As dusk fell, I dragged my weary body back to my courtyard. Normally Bren would have retreated to his room by this hour, but today he sat by the doorway, knees hugged to his chest, glancing around as if waiting for someone. His fluffy ears were out, drooping limply atop his head. "Bren," I called out to him. His ears perked up instantly at the sound of my voice, and his gaze snapped toward me. "Sis, you're finally back." The boy with beast ears suddenly buried himself in my embrace. "Sis, since we made our pact a month ago, you leave early and come back late every day. I barely get to see you. Do you not like me?" The boy's fluffy beast ears twitched nervously as he spoke with a slight tremble in his voice, as if afraid of something. "How could that be?" I chuckled while ruffling Bran's hair. "I've just had some matters to attend to these past few days. That's why I've been neglecting you. Then can you spend more time with me from now on, sis?" Bren lightly tugged at my sleeve with his fingers, his gaze averted as if afraid to meet my eyes. Of course. I couldn't resist pinching Bran's soft, squishy cheeks. Bren looked utterly content, even reverting to his true form for me to pet. As I stroked the silky tiger fur, my mind wandered to how I'd gather enough spiritual energy before Bran's next transformation. As my thoughts wandered, my hand slipped somewhere unexpected. I felt a tiny bump and absent-mindedly gave it a couple of squeezes. Bren instantly reverted to human form, his face flushing scarlet like a boiled lobster. "What's going on?" I blinked at Bren in utter confusion. You pervert. Bren dashed back to his room in a flash. 3. I chuckled at the firmly shut door. What's the point of running? You'll still be sharing my bed tonight. Previously when I returned, Bren was already asleep. This would be our first time sharing a bed while both awake. The slender, handsome youth perched tentatively at the bedside, leaving most of the space for me. As I settled onto the bed, I heard my companion's breath hitch abruptly, yet when I turned, their eyes remained firmly shut. Without a word, I wrapped myself in the quilt and slept. I possess the innate sacred furnace constitution. Even mere proximity to me during cultivation brings profound benefits. With no need for dual cultivation, Bran's training progressed miraculously, his physique growing more imposing with each passing month. As I approached him, I could actually feel an intimidating presence. Sis, Bren called out with a bright smile as he turned toward me. Through our time together, I'd come to realize Bren was genuinely kind-hearted. What a pity that in our past life, my sister only knew how to brutally force him to cultivate, ultimately leading to his tragic downfall. Counting the days, Bren's awakening draws ever nearer. Since Bren's been cultivating by my side in this lifetime, his awakening will surely come sooner. I should start making preparations. Bren, how about we go shopping in town together today? Sure, sis, I'll tag along with whatever you want to do. I shook my head with a chuckle. Silly tiger, we're going shopping for you. Lately, I'd made quite a fortune using my past life knowledge, more than enough to buy Bren some rare treasures. The streets were bustling as I pulled Bren into the treasure pavilion. I've just splurged on some spirit pearls and spirit stones at the treasure pavilion. Seeing my lavish spending, the shopkeeper rushed over to personally attend to me. As I was leaving after settling the bill, the shopkeeper suddenly grabbed my arm and whispered in my ear, "You clearly have exceptional taste, miss. I've got some special items in the back. Care to take a look?" "Oh, do tell. To be frank with you, miss, I possess a millennium-old spirit ginseng. Consuming it can replenish vast amounts of spiritual energy. Might this interest you?" My interest was genuinely piqued. At this point, I couldn't afford to miss any opportunity to obtain spiritual energy. A jade pendant lay quietly upon crimson silk, with wisps of white mist curling mysteriously above it. "Boss, this is indeed fine jade." Before I could finish, a snide voice cut me off. "If it's such fine jade, why don't you let your little sister have it?" I looked up. It was Lila. Her face was caked with thick makeup, noticeably thinner than before. Though her voice sounded forceful, it clearly lacked real strength. I chuckled inwardly. Seems that Snake Erebus had finally shown his true colors. I wonder what he'll do to me, his sister who wasn't born with the innate spiritual furnace. What's going on here? Another familiar voice rang out. This time, it was Erebus, for my sister visibly flinched at Erebus's voice, confirming my suspicions. Though a flicker of panic crossed my sister's eyes when Erebus arrived, she stood her ground with even greater determination. "Our Erebus is about to undergo his heavenly tribulation. Do you know what a bash transforms into after ascension? A dragon? Hand over the jade now. When Erebus becomes a dragon, the entire manor will bask in his glory." My sister's finger was practically jabbing at my nose. "Get out of the way." Bren darted in front of me and swatted my sister's hand away. The force sent my sister staggering, nearly knocking her off her feet. Yet even so, Erebus didn't lift a finger to help her. She's been completely discarded now that she's outlived her usefulness. My sister's eyes turned venomous, like a serpent's. I knew that look all too well. It was the same gaze she'd given me in our past life right before poisoning my wine. In past lives, anything of value I possessed was taken by force. "Dear sister, what fate awaits you in this lifetime?" I rested my hand lightly on Bran's outstretched arm, feeling the powerful muscles beneath the thin fabric. This kid genuinely cares about me and wants to keep me safe. If big sister wants it, who am I to stand in her way? After saying my piece, I bowed and left the treasure pavilion with Bren. "Sister, I could take that snake, if you want. I'll get your jade pendant back for you." Bren followed behind me, his eyes burning with murderous intent, as if he'd charged back to reclaim the pendant the moment I nodded. "No need. Why should we stoop to her level? Sis, I can totally do this." I ruffled the grumpy tiger's fur and whispered mysteriously, "Don't worry. I've got it all planned out. Besides, we finally got this date together, let's not waste it on them." Hearing my reply, Bren immediately perked up and started bouncing along beside me as we shopped. As we strolled through the stores, my mind kept circling back to today's events. Ordinary bash snakes never transform into dragons, nor do they require vast spiritual energy. Now even Erebus needs copious spiritual energy, to the point of requiring Lila's assistance. But it matters not, without me in this lifetime. He'll never ascend to dragonhood regardless. His frantic absorption of spiritual energy now is nothing but forced growth, and the backlash will inevitably consume him. What's wrong? I figured Bran's awakening was still some time away, so gathering spiritual energy wasn't urgent. but I'd underestimated myself. That very night, Bren developed a raging fever. Even the most renowned orc physician in the city couldn't diagnose it, merely calling the illness peculiar. Lila came to my yard just to mock me. Little sister, I told you he was sick and would die sooner or later. Who asked you not to listen? Big sister, just wait and see whose game this will be in the end. Seeing she couldn't out-argue me, Lila spat in my yard and left. I stepped inside to check on Bran. Bran's body burned like a branding iron, beads of sweat rolling down his wheat-colored skin along the sharp contours of his face. His eyes, usually bright as stars, were now bloodshot. Beneath his aquiline nose, his breathing came in ragged, scorching gasps that seemed ready to ignite the very air. Sis, am I being a bother? I'll get better soon, I promise. With Orc's superior hearing, I knew he caught every word Lila said. I placed the cool, damp cloth on his forehead and grasped his burning hands. Don't talk like that. Of course you'll recover. I meant to wipe him down, but when lifting the hem of his shirt, I discovered eerie markings had inexplicably appeared across Bran's taut abdomen. The demonic patterns spread like ink-black spider silk, writhing with unnatural life as they traced the contours of his abdominal muscles. In that instant, I realized I'd vastly underestimated myself. The awakening I thought was still days away had come upon us this very day. The ancient texts came back to my mind. During their awakening phase, white tigers not only require vast spiritual energy but also experience intense primal urges. Instead of staying put on the bed, Bren sat up and began nuzzling his furry head against my neck and shoulders. His breathing grew ragged as his restless hands started tracing fiery paths across my body, yet he never crossed that final line. I've seen Bran's loyalty these past days. It's time to give him a little reward. Don't let the child suffocate. I turned and met Bran's burning lips with mine. The next morning Bren woke up fresh as a daisy, leaving me sore and aching in bed. Bran's physique had become noticeably stronger than before, and the thought of future days ahead made my vision darken. While resting in the courtyard, I was suddenly startled by a shrill commotion. Don't you dare hide behind closed doors, sister. The household servants saw you steal my spirit jade with their own eyes yesterday. Did I steal her spirit jade? It seems even after rebirth, I shouldn't have held any expectations for my dear sister. According to clan law, thieves must transfer all their spiritual energy to the victim and receive 30 lashes. Erebus's voice echoed from the courtyard, clearly here to back up my sister, watching their coordinated performance. I'd already begun piecing things together. Erebus truly does need spiritual energy, an enormous amount of it, otherwise, he wouldn't resort to such clumsy tactics to frame me and covet my cultivation. Just as I raised my head to retort, Bren came rushing out in a whirlwind. I've been with Mara the whole time. Don't you dare falsely accuse him. 5. Lila shot Bren a disdainful look, rolling her eyes dramatically. You're her orc, of course you'd defend her. You two are clearly in cahoots. Just wait till you both have to transfer your spiritual energy to me. And Erebus, gently pulling Bren back, I flashed my dear sister a radiant smile and said, since you're so confident, sister, why don't we gather everyone in the manor to witness whether I truly stole your jade? Bran's eyes flickered with surprise before regaining composure. He squeezed my hand tightly, as if offering silent support. Lila's face darkened momentarily before she forced composure. Fine, she sneered. Do you think I'm afraid? Even if the whole world sees, it won't change the fact that you stole my jade. The entire household was summoned to the main hall, where my sister continued her vehement accusations about me stealing her spirit jade. I simply stood by with a silent smile. My father slammed his cane on the ground in rage and began berating me without hearing my side. You ungrateful wretch, you've always envied your sister, stealing her things since childhood. And now you've taken to thievery. With unflinching composure, I calmly replied, since my sister keeps accusing me of stealing her jade, I'd like to see the proof. Evidence, that's easy enough. Just let someone search your room and we'll surely find the stolen goods. May I ask, dear sister, was what you lost truly a spirit jade containing spiritual energy? Of course. What, is little sister getting scared now? If you confess your crime now, perhaps I could plead with father to spare you those 20 lashes. Not at all. I'm just concerned that elder sister's memory might be failing with age, and you've mistaken what was lost. You. Lila seemed on the verge of an outburst, but restrained herself, directing the matrons and maids to search my courtyard. Soon the head matron emerged holding a jade pendant, presenting it to Lila like a prized trophy. See, young mistress, this servant found it in your quarters. With the evidence before us, what possible explanation could you have, sister? Lila adopted a domineering air, looking down her nose at me. But this isn't the jade sister mentioned, I remarked casually, sipping my tea. Pitiful to say, in my past life when I was imprisoned, the boss snake feared my death would ruin our dual cultivation. He scavenged countless rare treasures just to keep me barely alive. That's why now, a single glance is all I need to discern a jade pendant's authenticity. The shopkeeper did produce a genuinely rare warm jade that day, but claims of it containing spiritual energy, pure exaggeration. That jade is clearly just an ordinary stone devoid of any spiritual energy. The white smoke is nothing more than vaporized mineral powder the merchant placed beneath it. Wretched fiend, the evidence is right before your eyes, yet you still deny it. Guards, drag this abomination away and drain every ounce of her spiritual power for Lila. I'd like to see anyone try. Bren emerged from behind me, positioning himself protectively in front of me. As he spoke, Bren's pupils flashed gold for an instant, radiating an uncanny glow. Golden irises, the servant gasped in astonishment. That's the eye color only awakened primordial beasts possess. Could the second lady's beast husband be an awakened ancient divine creature? As Bren revealed his golden eyes, my dear sister's face instantly darkened. Happy, not a chance, in the past life. The boss snake transformed into a golden dragon early, while the white tiger met an untimely demise. Who would have thought that in this life, her switching to the boss snake would trigger my white tiger's premature awakening instead? Erebus also wore a grim expression, his gaze toward Bren seething with hatred. So what if your beast husband is an awakened divine beast? You stole what's mine. Both of you deserve to have all your spiritual power drained as compensation. Seeing everyone's attention diverted by Bren, Lila quickly spoke up to redirect the focus back to the precious jade. You jest, sister, look closely. What the matron holds is merely common warm jade, nothing like the spiritual jade you described. After lying dormant for so long, all the chi-infused mineral powder on this jade has dissipated. To any observer now, it's just an ordinary piece. I chuckled and said, will you let me off the hook now, sister? Mara's face twisted in disgust like she'd swallowed a fly, her expression flustered. No, that's impossible, impossible. Wait, I must be mistaken. What I lost was just an ordinary warming jade. I'd anticipated her sudden change of story and chuckled. But I asked you before the search, sister. Back then you swore it was a spirit jade you'd lost. Lila opened her mouth to protest, but one sharp glance from Erebus silenced her completely. One look told me everything. She must have suffered Erebus abuse just like I did in my past life. In my previous incarnation, I possessed the sacred cauldron constitution, where regular dual cultivation alone could enhance my cultivation, but Lila's different. Who knows what torment Erebus has in store for her? That serpent never had an ounce of sincerity. If it's just Lila misremembering, then let it slide this time. With everyone watching, father couldn't openly favor my sister. So the matter was quietly dropped, but I alone knew, though Lila played the villain this time, Erebus was surely pulling the strings behind the scenes. Having failed to frame me, she'd now face brutal retribution and endless torment upon returning. As we left the hall at dusk, Bren gripped my hand tightly, feeling the warmth of his palm. I whispered, what's wrong, sis? I feel so worthless, Bren mumbled, his head drooping. Silly boy. I flicked his forehead, fighting back unexpected tears. In my past life, no one cared for me. My parents always favored my elder sister since childhood. I thought marrying Erebus would bring relief, but instead I faced endless humiliation and torment, where even the lowest servants in the Dragon Palace treated me with utter contempt. But thankfully, in this lifetime I met Bren. Sister, why are you crying? Seeing my tears, Bren leaned down anxiously, his callous fingers from training hovering near my face, wanting to wipe my tears away yet afraid his rough skin might scratch my delicate complexion. It's nothing, I just feel so lucky to have met you. I wiped away my tears with my sleeve. Bren, you go ahead inside. I need some time alone. Sitting on the doorstep, I gazed at the starry sky, reminiscing about fragments of past and present lives. Suddenly, a voice shattered the tranquility. Mara, the truth is, it's always been you. Erebus' voice came through as he stood there in opulent robes, loosely tied at the waist with just a hint of exposed chest. During the beast husband selection, I secretly hoped you'd choose me. That's why I sneaked into the manor. For you. Erebus reached out toward me, closing the distance step by deliberate step. I laughed. So Erebus has been reborn too. Did you come crawling back after realizing Lila wasn't a natural spirit furnace? The me from our past life might have fallen for that pitiful act. But I've already seen your true colors in my previous incarnation. Get away from me. I brushed off his approaching hand. Mara, it's you I love. What's so great about that tiger? He's just after your special constitution. My feelings for you are genuine. Get lost. I threw the icy remark over my shoulder as I turned toward the courtyard. Mara, Erebus was actually kneeling behind me, desperately clutching at my skirt. Just as I was about to strike, a white figure flashed by like lightning and kicked Erebus 3 meters away. It was Bren. Mara belongs to me alone. Who the hell do you think you are, daring to touch her? Bren held me tightly in his arms, and I could smell the fresh soapy scent on him. Erebus lay on the ground, wiping blood from his lips as his slit pupils glared at me venomously. Mara, you'll regret this. Bren covered my eyes and said, sis, don't look at trash. Look at me when we get back. I wrapped my arms around Bran's neck and let him carry me back inside. Bran laid me on the bed, meticulously exploring every inch of my body before pouting. "Sis, you smell like someone else." I leaned close to his ear and whispered deliberately, "Then, cover it up yourself. I regret it. I truly, deeply regret it. I never should have teased Bran yesterday. I haven't left this bed for 3 days. Father's health is deteriorating rapidly, making it difficult for him to manage family affairs. The next clan succession ceremony is approaching. All eligible candidates from our generation will compete in the tournament. The beastmen will duel in the arena, and the victor's wife shall become the next clan matriarch. I watched Bran training outside. I participated in last year's tournament and know all the contenders' capabilities. None could possibly defeat Bran if everything goes smoothly this year. The position of family head will undoubtedly be mine. Erebus completely vanished after realizing I'd never changed my mind. From the servants' gossip, I heard Erebus is nearing awakening too. Now everyone's saying he'll be the next Dragon King. The moment I heard, I knew Erebus had resorted to dark arts. In our past life, even dual cultivation with my innate sacred furnace constitution wasn't enough for Erebus. He sought countless women for cultivation. Yet each emerged with faltering steps, their bodies drained of vitality like boneless puppets. Dark arts remain dark arts. Every time Erebus practiced this method, his spiritual energy would spiral into chaos, and only I could stabilize it. News of his draconic transformation spreads too swiftly. I dread to imagine how turbulent his spiritual energy has become. The clan succession tournament begins soon, and Lila and I were placed in different groups. This means my sister and I won't meet until the final showdown. Bran and I swept through the competition effortlessly. Awakened Bran overpowered every orc opponent, with many forfeiting before matches even began. Erebus's performance was wildly inconsistent, sometimes dominating easily while barely scraping through other matches. Every time Erebus narrowly won, my sister would look ghastly pale the next day, her steps unsteady, sometimes even bearing fresh wounds on her face. By the time of our final showdown, the 20-year-old Lila had aged like someone in their 60s. Her once lustrous raven hair turned brittle and ashen, those clear bright eyes now clouded and dull. Beneath the fighting ring, she stared at me with manic intensity, muttering under her breath, "I will be the Dragon Queen. I must become the Dragon Queen, sis." Daydreaming in broad daylight, I teased with a playful smile. She suddenly realized her slip of the tongue, pursed her lips, and just stared daggers at me. If looks could kill, I'd have died 100 times over by now. But alas, looks can't kill, only real power can. Could he have been reborn too? The arena battle has reached a fever pitch. Erebus seemed to stake everything, channeling his inner energy wildly as he lunged at Bran like a madman. Pathetic. This is nothing but a mantis trying to stop a chariot. The gap between pre-awakening and post-awakening is an unbridgeable chasm. No amount of Erebus energy absorption can compensate for it. Bran effortlessly dodged every frenzied strike Erebus unleashed. 6. Yet each of Bran's counterblows landed with crushing force on Erebus. Erebus' aura grew increasingly chaotic. I knew he was about to snap. "Bran," I shouted. He understood me instantly with just one glance. "Erebus is highly unstable right now. If he rampages, he might even harm the guests." Just as Bran was about to deliver the final blow to Erebus, Lila suddenly spoke up. "Erebus, maybe we should just give up." "I don't want to die." Hearing this, Erebus instantly flew into a rage, his spiritual energy surging wildly as he fixed Lila with crimson eyes burning with hatred. "It's all your fault, you wretched woman. If you hadn't chosen me, I'd be the Dragon King by now. This is all on you." Mid-sentence, he suddenly leaped off the arena platform and charged straight toward Lila. He'd completely lost his mind. Chaotic spiritual energy rampaged through his body, threatening to make him self-destruct at any moment. "No, little sister, save me." She was actually fleeing straight toward me. "Stay away from Mara." I let out a cold laugh. Seeing this, Bran leapt off the platform and kicked Lila in the opposite direction. Lila tumbled across the ground before collapsing, helplessly watching Erebus advance step by step toward her. Erebus suddenly let out a piercing scream of agony. This was the sign of his impending self-destruction. Bran swiftly shielded me beneath him, his body forming an impenetrable barrier. With a thunderous boom, Erebus's body vanished as torrents of spiritual energy erupted, obliterating the entire arena and leaving many spectators severely wounded. I was the only one who came out completely unscathed. Thanks to Bran's protection, Bran only suffered minor flesh wounds on his back, and later playfully insisted I personally apply his medicine. Lila also survived the explosion, but only by grabbing an elderly bystander as a human shield. The old man died instantly. While she merely broke both legs, as the head of this household, I simply cannot allow such a troublemaker to remain as the young mistress of this house, so I banished her to the servants' quarters, where she'll work alongside the maids to atone for her sins once her leg heals. After all, we were sisters once. I still wanted to see Lila one last time. The moment I stepped into the thatched hut, a foul stench assaulted my senses, making me cover my nose in disgust. Lila glared at me with venomous eyes, as if trying to bore holes through me with her gaze. "You did this to me, and you dare show your face, deprived of water." Lila's voice had grown hoarse and grating. "Why wouldn't I come? What exactly can you do to me now?" I looked down at her with pity in my eyes. "Sister, I know you've been reborn, yet in this life you're still living so miserably. It's all your fault. Without you, I would be the family head and the dragon queen." Lila tried to push herself up in anger, but collapsed heavily from exhaustion. "Don't worry, sister, I found you a wonderful opportunity." I sat by her bedside, caressing her gaunt face with my soft, delicate hands. The Marquis of Onping's household. The Marquis of Onping was the most powerful noble in the realm, and Lila's eyes instantly lit up. "I knew your good days wouldn't last. Just wait till I marry Lord Onping. We'll see how long your smugness lasts then." My elder sister lifted her haughty chin again, asserting her authority as the firstborn. I couldn't suppress my laughter. "Dearest sister, do you even know why you're being sent to Lord Onping's household?" I took a few steps back. Her stench was simply unbearable. God knows where Lila got the audacity to think Marquis Onping fancied her. "Let me enlighten you. Do you even know who you used as a human shield that day?" Lila's expression froze momentarily, yet she forced herself to say, "Just some ordinary old woman." "Huh, ordinary? That was Marquis Onping's wet nurse who died for you, a woman the entire household revered." Lila froze as if struck by lightning, collapsing rigidly while staring vacantly at the ceiling, no longer responding to my words. The room's putrid stench became unbearable, so I withdrew and had Marquis Onping's men take Lila away. Rumor has it that from then on, the agonized screams of women echoed daily from the secret chambers of the Marquis of Onping's estate. Story 2. During the Dragon Boat Festival, my cousin killed a white serpent by smashing it against the rocks in the back hills, then crushed all its eggs underfoot. That very night, a giant black serpent visited my uncle in his dreams. It declared that since my cousin had slaughtered its family, my uncle's household must pay the price. My uncle sought help from the village shaman, a man of formidable supernatural powers. The sorcerer claimed the black serpent was a demonic snake that had cultivated its power in the 10,000 serpents' lair behind the mountain. The white serpent slain by my cousin, along with the crushed snake eggs, were the black serpent's wife and offspring. If uncle offered the serpent a new bride, perhaps its vengeful wrath could be appeased. So my uncle's family decided to compensate the black serpent with me, an orphan who'd lost both parents. Little did they know, this was just the beginning of their nightmare. The cousin knelt before his uncle, weeping bitterly. "Father, I had no idea that white serpent was the snake demon's wife." The uncle puffed on his tobacco pipe in silence, making wet smacking sounds, wiping her tears. The aunt pleaded, "Husband, didn't the shaman say offering Blair to the serpent demon would appease its wrath? Let's give her away, better that than our whole family perishing." The uncle remained silent. The pregnant sister-in-law knelt down, twin trails of silent tears streaming down her cheeks. "Father, your grandson will be born in 2 months. How could you bear to see him killed by that demon before he even draws breath?" My cousin ran over and clung to uncle's arm, sobbing hysterically. "Father, I'm only 13, I don't want to die." Uncle remained silent until his pipe produced no more smoke, then tapped it calmly and said, "Prepare Blair's belongings. We'll send her to the serpent pit tonight." Standing in the dim corner, my suspended heart finally turned to stone. For the next 2 hours, I received the kindest treatment I'd known since my parents' passing. Uncle piled my bowl high with meat, Aunt personally bathed me, cousin's wife gifted me her pristine wedding gown she once wore, cousin stopped giving me those creepy sideways glances. For once, my cousin actually gave me a friendly look. That night was moonless and windy, with an eerie silence blanketing everything. My uncle led me with a torch to the entrance of the serpent's lair at the back mountain. He knelt on the ground, offering apologies to the serpent lord, and pledged me as compensation to be his bride, to live or die at his whim. After what felt like an eternity, he staggered to his feet and left reluctantly, wiping away his tears. Ancient trees towered around the serpent pit, forming an abyssal hell where even sunlight couldn't penetrate. The night grew ink black, so dark you couldn't see your own hand before your face. The rustling sound closed in from all directions. I knew it was the slithering of countless snakes and insects. A bone-chilling cold shot up from the soles of my feet, instantly spreading through every limb and seeping into my very marrow, leaving me trembling uncontrollably. I've been terrified of snakes since childhood. Just the thought of countless serpents lurking here makes my scalp crawl. I squeezed my eyes shut, desperately trying to block out everything beyond myself, but this was clearly just self-deception. The thick serpent's tail coiled around my waist, lifting me midair as its cold, damp forked tongue flickered across my face, his scrawny looking, "But you smell delicious, tasty morsel. Where should this lord begin his feast?" A piercing, shrill male voice accompanied by clammy breath washed over me, venomous and bone-chilling. Trembling, I stammered, Lord Serpent, see, could you wait until I've had my revenge, before devouring me?" The serpent's tail coiled tighter around me, its crushing force threatening to snap my waist into any second, when a mocking voice slithered through the air. "Revenge? Whose revenge do you seek? Speak, and if it amuses me, I might let you settle your score before devouring you." I gasped through clenched teeth. My uncle and cousin, the crushing pressure around my waist eased momentarily before returning, though this time with less brutal force, trying to trick me with cheap tricks. Never, I bear a grudge against them, I've long wanted to kill them, but their wariness of me was too great. I had no choice but to bide my time. "Lord Serpent, grant me a few days, once I've had my vengeance, I'll return and submit to your judgment." Still playing games? Fine. I'll just eat you now. The serpent's forked tongue flicked across my cheek again, savoring its prey. Trembling with fear, I stammered, "My father told me the serpent lord walks the righteous path, that harming innocent mortals would damn you to demonhood. Since you cannot take vengeance yourself, let me be your instrument of retribution." The serpent lord chuckled darkly. "If you know I cannot slay the innocent, why tremble so before me? To not fear," I lied with straight-faced solemnity. "But offer the majesty of the serpent lord. I'm not afraid of being eaten, but snakes terrify me, especially their cold, slithery tongues." The serpent lord snorted and flung me onto the pebble-strewn ground. The fall wasn't high, it stung a little, but no real harm done. I scrambled to my feet and dropped to my knees, head bowed. I simply couldn't bear to look at those eerie, lantern-sized eyes glowing with a ghastly green light. The serpent lord sighed, his shrill voice carrying an ominous, distant echo. "Your cousin slaughtered my kin. By rights, I should take his life in return, yet the heavens show no justice, because he's merely mortal. Even this blood debt would cost me a century of cultivation if I were to strike him down. If you can eradicate your uncle's entire family within 3 days, I shall grant you freedom. Fail to wipe them out completely in this time, and regardless of how many you've slain, you'll still become my bride." The tone brooked no argument. 3 days was too brief, yet I dared not bargain. "Kowtowing," I murmured, "my gratitude, Serpent Lord. Just let me slaughter that cousin and uncle, that's all the satisfaction I need." The descent was smooth, and I made it back to the village in less than half the time it took to climb up. I kept a low profile. The Serpent Lord had warned me the shaman was formidable and told me to stay cautious. My uncle's household was fast asleep as I slipped quietly into the courtyard, standing by the window. I weighed my options and realized taking on both my cousin and uncle at once was impossible, so I held back. Now they're exposed while I remain hidden, allowing me to pick them off one by one. Uncle and aunt toil in the fields every single day. My cousin's a lazybones who can't sit still. He's always wandering off into the mountains for no good reason. I've decided to make my cousin the first target, partly because I hated my cousin most, and partly because he often wandered alone. Just as I expected, the next day my cousin seized the chance while my uncle and aunt were working in the fields, grabbed his bow and arrows, and headed for the back hills. My cousin was extremely alert, so I didn't dare get too close, only following at a distance. Not long after entering the hills, he spotted a wild rabbit. Chasing after it, he ran straight toward a cliff. My cousin was no fool, seeing the rabbit leading him towards certain doom. He instantly realized he'd been tricked and halted just 15 meters from the cliff's edge. I couldn't help but sigh in frustration. "Damn vermin, how dare you mess with me? Don't let me catch you next time." My cousin spat in disgust, loosed an arrow at the rabbit, then turned back the way he came. At that very moment, I launched a stone at my cousin with my slingshot. This slingshot had been hidden in the mountains. I'd secretly practiced with it every time I went into the woods, dreaming of the day it would help me avenge my parents. Never did I imagine today would be the day it proved its worth. The stone shot straight and true, striking my cousin square in the left eye. He immediately clutched his face with a howl of pain, but he quickly suppressed the pain, limped up toward my hiding spot, and raised his bow. "You bastard, I'll skin you alive today." True to his ruthless nature, my cousin didn't cower when blinded. It only awakened his innate brutality and bloodlust. My cousin advanced step by step. "You coward, sneak attacking like a rat but too scared to show your face, you spineless bastard." I stayed perfectly still, remaining hidden behind the tree trunk. "Got you now." Cousin Shing drew his machete and charged toward one of the trees. Blare, my cousin's blade struck the tree, only to realize he'd been tricked. It was just a piece of cloth hanging from the branches, just as he was about to turn around. A black snake dropped from the branch and slithered right into his collar. Though the snake didn't bite my cousin, he was terrified out of his wits, frantically reaching inside his clothes to grab the venomous creature. "Get the hell off me!" I crept from behind another large tree, circled behind him, and smashed the rock in my hand straight into the back of his skull. Warm blood sprayed across my face. My cousin turned with a scream, reaching desperately for me as his body began failing, swaying briefly before collapsing like a felled tree. I knew I should have rooted them all out. My cousin closed his eyes forever, consumed by endless regret and hatred, his dead stare frozen in eternal resentment. With every ounce of strength, I dragged his corpse to the cliff's edge and kicked it over. Leaning against the tree, I sat numbly staring at my blood-stained hands. Though shaken to the core, I'd never regret this. My parents were both murdered by my cousin. My father was a traveling peddler who'd scraped together modest savings over the years, though never struck it rich. When I turned 10, Dad had saved enough to settle down and live quietly with Mother and me. My cousin was a gambling-addicted good-for-nothing, always short on cash. Seeing my father making good money, he kept pestering him for loans over and over, after too many requests. My father lost patience and refused to lend him any more. My cousin lashed out, swearing he'd get even with my old man one day. Dad thought it was just empty threats in the heat of the moment and didn't take it seriously. One day, my parents were robbed and killed by bandits on their way back from selling game in town. My uncle and aunt handled their funeral arrangements, then used adopting me as an excuse to seize our family's house and farmland, treating me like a servant. Though they treated me poorly, I was still grateful. After all, if they hadn't taken me in, my fate would have been far worse. But before long, I began noticing all sorts of oddities. My perpetually broke cousin who couldn't afford a wife suddenly got married. Uncle upgraded to a brand new pipe and premium tobacco. Even my younger cousin's sister splurged on fancy silk hair ornaments. To my horror, I saw my late mother's silver hairpin, the one meant to be my dowry, adorning my aunt's head. I often fidgeted with the dowry items my mother prepared, until one day I accidentally dropped and damaged that silver hairpin. Terrified as I was, neither parent scolded me, they just reassured me the town silversmith could easily fix it. On the day of their accident, that very hairpin was in my parents' possession. Aunt probably thought the silver hairpin was newly bought by my mother, so she wore it brazenly in public without a second thought. It was then that I realized my cousin's vicious threats against my father weren't just empty words. No wonder Uncle always looked at me with mixed emotions, and regarded me with wariness and disgust. While my cousin occasionally radiated murderous intent toward me, my cousin had tried to kill me more than once. He once pushed me into the river, deliberately shot arrows at me, and took me to an old bachelor's house to be humiliated, but fortunately, I've got 9 lives and narrowly escaped each time. 3. I lived with extreme caution, molding myself into an obedient yet overly cautious person. Yet even so, they still wouldn't let me be. In that case, blood demands blood. Looking down at Blakey the snake who hadn't left after completing its mission, I said with genuine gratitude, "Thank you, Blakey." Had it not intervened with my cousin at that critical moment, I might have killed him but certainly wouldn't have escaped unscathed. Blakey was an intelligent serpent that raised its upper body and cocked its head at me. I said with a laugh, "You're a clever snake, keep cultivating your skills, and who knows, one day you might become a demon like Lord Serpent." I knew Blakey, just like the rabbit, was sent by Lord Serpent to assist me. Flattery will get you everywhere. Before throwing my cousin off the cliff, I stripped him of anything useful, a machete, a canteen, and 2 plain steamed buns. Before eating, I tore off a small piece and tossed it to Blakey. Blakey showed no interest in the steamed bun, prancing away with an air of disdain. I picked it up from the ground, blew off the dust, and ate it. This was the first time I'd tasted white flour buns since my parents passed away. So delicious. A full belly makes a strong worker. After wolfing down half the steamed bun, he tucked the remainder into his coat and immediately began setting traps on the spot. If cousin doesn't return soon, Uncle and aunt are bound to come looking. All I need to do is wait for my prey to come to me. I left my cousin's bow and arrows by the cliff edge, then dug several traps along the path and set animal snares I'd scavenged from the woods. Finally, I scattered dry branches and leaves as camouflage. With everything prepared, I took cover behind a large boulder on higher ground to wait and rest. Uncle and aunt came searching at dawn, carrying torches and calling out as they walked, "My child, where are you?" Aunt's voice was clearly choked with tears. "Blaze, Blaze." Uncle seemed particularly angry. Soon they reached the spot where I'd set the trap. Uncle had an acute sense for the scent of blood. He stopped dead in his tracks, alert. "Wait, what are we waiting for? Our son is missing." The aunt lost her patience and stepped right into the trap, letting out a piercing scream. The uncle quickly snapped out of it and hastily pulled his wife up from the ground. "My foot, my foot." The aunt kept wailing in pain. Uncle glanced at aunt's left foot caught in the trap, then at the clearly man-made snare, warily scanning their surroundings. "Old man, get this off me now. Aunt urged impatiently. "Shut your mouth," Uncle snapped, and opened her mouth to retort, then belatedly sensed something amiss and fell silent. After a brief silence, Uncle spoke to the quiet mountain woods. "Blair, it's you, isn't it?" I never expected Uncle to be so sharp. He actually figured out it was me. Thinking about it, with the Serpent Lord's power, killing them wouldn't require such elaborate measures. That leaves only one possibility. It had to be me. "Blair, it was my decision to send you to the snake pit. I wronged you. Could you please spare your cousin?" My uncle surveyed our surroundings while coaxing me with persuasive words. "I know you resent me, Blair. I'll take whatever punishment you give. I'll return your family house and pay you compensation. Just tell me where your cousin is, please." My aunt stared at the ground when she suddenly noticed some leaves covering long-dried bloodstains. "Dad, look, what's that?" Uncle followed Aunt's pointing finger, then strode past the trap with long steps. He saw not just blood-stained leaves, but also that bloodied stone. Uncle's stooped frame froze for an instant before his knees buckled beneath him. "Girl, if you came for revenge against me, I'd have no complaints, but why target Blaze? He's my only heir." The uncle's mournful weeping now carried unmistakable hatred and murderous intent. I knew it. He wanted me dead. He wasn't even bothering to pretend anymore. Blaze's ruthless cruelty certainly didn't come from that petty, penny-pinching aunt of his. That's the genuine legacy you got from your hypocritical uncle during my father's last trip away. I heard scuffling noises coming from my mother's room when I got up at night. I called out from outside the door, and then my uncle slunk out of my mother's room. I was too young back then to understand what was happening. My mother held me and wept, cursing my uncle as a scoundrel while begging me not to tell anyone. That was when father returned and decided never to travel far again. Truth be told, their trips to town weren't just for selling game, they were also scouting houses. Father promised we'd move to town after the new year, taking mother and me with him. That day, I was brimming with joy every single moment. Little did I know, instead of my parents taking me to town, I'd receive news of their tragic death. That evening, Uncle had originally gone out to look for my cousin, yet 4 hours later, he returned with my cousin carrying my parents' lifeless bodies. If my cousin was the murderer, then my uncle was at least an accomplice. They all deserved to die. The uncle didn't wallow in grief for long. He took the bow from his back, knocked an arrow, and strode straight toward the boulder on the slope. By now, dawn was breaking across the sky. Damn my weak arms, I couldn't even draw Blaze's bow. Would have been perfect if I could just shoot him dead. When Blaze's mother realized I'd killed him, she collapsed wailing and cursing. "You goddamned worthless bitch, you murdered my son, I'll skin you alive." The aunt stood there cursing for a while before desperately prying open the trap, struggling to her feet and limping forward. She was probably searching for Blaze's corpse. Too bad she'll never find it, for the uncle quickly caught up, tossing his bow aside and reaching for the machete at his waist. "Uncle, over here," I shouted. Then as he turned around, I hurled the stone in my hand straight at his head, caught off guard by my ambush from the tree. He stumbled backward in panic, his right foot landing squarely in the trap before he collapsed with a scream. I leapt down from the branches, snatched another stone from the ground, and flung it at him with all my might. He dodged just in time. The rock missed his head but struck his left hand, drawing another agonized scream. Though injured, Uncle was still a hardened laborer, far stronger and quicker than this half-starved girl. Weak as I was and wounded as he was, we fought to a standstill. Neither gaining the upper hand. Hearing the commotion, Aunt abandoned her search for Blaze's body and scrambled toward us in panic. I dared not glance at Aunt's condition, for the slightest distraction would give Uncle the upper hand. This way, I'm surely dead today. At this life-or-death moment, Aunt had crept behind me, raising her cleaver, but the blade never struck. A black snake suddenly dropped from the tree, coiling around her head to blind her. The aunt frantically wrestled with the blacky snake. My blade struck my uncle's waist, draining his strength as he staggered and collapsed sideways. Just as I was about to finish him off, faint voices echoed from the mountain path. With no time to deal with them both, I delivered a final slash to my uncle and kicked the aunt down the slope before making a swift escape. I scrambled down the hillside in a panic, with my pursuer doggedly chasing after me. They kept shouting threats to kill me as they ran. Just as they were about to catch me, a massive swarm of snakes suddenly appeared in my path. Gritting my teeth, I plunged straight into the writhing mass of serpents. The pursuers seemed thoroughly intimidated and didn't dare to follow any further. With no destination in mind, I kept running alongside the retreating serpent horde until we reached the serpent's lair. My previous visit had been at night, but this daylight exposure made the sight far more overwhelming. Every conceivable surface, trees, ground, cliff faces, teemed with snakes of every variety. They slithered along, occasionally flicking out crimson forked tongues, staring at me with unblinking intensity, as if eyeing a prime cut of meat. Sunlight seemed trapped above the treetops, leaving even the sweltering day permeated with a bone-chilling gloom. The soaked clothes clung to my skin, every pore saturated with an endless Creeping cold, Blair, you've only killed 2 people. From the stone cavern came the Serpent Lord's signature shrill voice, slimy, sinister, like viscous venom that completely enveloped my body. Shivering uncontrollably from the cold, I still tried to bargain for my chance. Lord Serpent, the 3-day deadline hasn't passed yet. I still have time. The Snake Lord scoffed. The shaman's already onto our deal. If you go back to the village now, you'll be turned into a pincushion before you even set foot inside, but they're probably using your aunt as bait, just waiting for you to walk right into their trap. I was completely speechless. The one I most wanted dead is already dead. Whether my aunt lives or dies doesn't particularly concern me. Having lost both husband and son, life holds little joy for her now. In that case, the Serpent Lord drawled with unyielding authority, you shall honor our agreement and become my bride. The word no rose instinctively to my lips, but I remembered this was a pact I'd made. There could be no going back. But, Lord Serpent, I'd like to take one last look at the village. The Serpent Lord scoffed. Go see for yourself then, you fool. I didn't dare get too close, instead climbing a tall tree with good visibility to observe from afar. Just as the Serpent Lord predicted, villagers are guarding every entrance to the village, lying in wait for me to walk into their trap. Only this elusive sorcerer could command such formidable influence over the people. I retreated sullenly, careful to avoid being spotted by any unexpected mountain visitors. On the path back to the serpent's lair, I wavered endlessly between ending it all and becoming the Serpent Lord's bride. If the Serpent Lord were the Tiger Lord or Wolf Lord, I'd have agreed without hesitation, but a serpent is still a serpent. The mere thought makes my skin crawl. Becoming its spouse is utterly unthinkable. Then death it shall be. After all, I've already slain the one I most wanted dead. By the time I resolved to end my own life, I'd already reached the outskirts of the serpent abyss. As I rounded the final corner, I saw the serpent's lair engulfed in raging flames. With the pungent stench of sulfur assaulting my nostrils, the ground was littered with mutilated snake carcasses of every kind, a truly spine-chilling sight. Someone attacked the Serpent Lord. Who would dare? My first instinct was to investigate, but then it occurred to me that whoever attacked the Serpent Lord might still be there, so I withdrew my outstretched foot. I cautiously tipped 2 steps back, and just as I was about to turn away, something fell from above. Instinctively, I raised my hands to catch it. It was the same Blakey snake that had helped me earlier, now gravely injured and barely clinging to life. After a moment's hesitation, I mustered my courage and tucked it into my robe. I didn't dare stop, pushing deeper into the dense woods until nightfall completely enveloped the forest. Exhausted, I finally found a sheltered spot to rest. Parched, starving, and utterly spent, I fished out a flatbread from my coat, wolfed down a few bites and gulped some water. Gradually regaining some strength, I pulled Blakey from my coat for inspection, still breathing, but barely hanging on. Remembering how it had helped me twice before, I tucked it back inside my coat, resolved to dispose of it only after its last breath. The summer night wasn't too chilly, and being accustomed to hunger and cold, I soon fell asleep. That night, I had a bizarre and erotic dream. A handsome man in black told me he was about to kick the bucket and wanted to practice dual cultivation with me. I didn't understand what dual cultivation meant, so I asked him to explain. He said dual cultivation meant becoming husband and wife. He was so gentle, and with his handsome looks, I couldn't bear to see him die, so I agreed in a daze. The dream felt incredibly real, but I forgot every bit of it the moment I woke up. The next morning, I woke up refreshed, stretching lazily when suddenly I felt an icy chill in my chest, like I was carrying a block of ice. A sudden realization hit me. I yanked up the culprit and flung it to the ground. How dare this scaly pervert slither into my undergarments while I slept? The impact woke Blakey, who lifted his head and stared at me blankly before slithering over to a sapling, coiling around it in obvious irritation. Knowing he possessed intelligence, I began lecturing him like a misbehaving child. You're the one who harassed me first, yet you have the nerve to be angry. That's completely unreasonable. The Blakey snake glanced at me before looking away, clearly uninterested in listening. I gave up on the naive idea of reasoning with it, even if it's intelligent. It's still a snake. Trying to reason with it is like playing the lute to a cow. I'll let it slide this time, but don't push your luck next time. I raised my knife and made a slashing motion. Blakey the snake shot me a cold glare that triggered a familiar sense of danger, like a sudden wake-up call. It's a snake, the one thing I fear most. Even if it seems harmless now, I shouldn't underestimate it. I reluctantly sheathed my knife, staring blankly at the endless expanse of mountains. Will I even make it out of here alive? And even if I do escape, where would I belong? Blakey, which way should we go? The snake. Blakey paused, slithered down from the tree trunk, climbed up my leg, and coiled around my left arm, its tiny head pointing southwest. Trusting Blakey's judgment, I moved forward in the direction it indicated. When thirsty, I drank from the stream. When hungry, I foraged for wild berries. Ever since I mastered fire making, Blakey would occasionally bring back rabbits or pheasants during my breaks. Blakey's wounds gradually healed, yet it still insisted on coiling around my arm. 5. I must admit, familiarity breeds comfort. After spending these days together, I've grown accustomed to Blakey's touch. Every night, I'd share intimate moments with that man in black within my dreams, only to forget everything upon waking, despite roughing it through the journey. I grew increasingly energetic, my complexion even improved miraculously, defying all logic. After about half a month navigating treacherous swamps under Blakey's guidance, we arrived at a place straight out of fairyland. Lush greenery stretched beneath birdsong and floral scents, where crystal-clear streams meandered through the landscape. I waded into the stream and washed my face with refreshing delight. Blakey slid off my arm and began following the current downstream. Having long considered it my sole companion, I hurried after it downstream in desperation. After about 15 minutes, we reached the stream's end, a bottomless lake stretching before us. Without hesitation, Blakey swam straight into the lake, afraid it might leave me behind. I anxiously called out, "Blakey." Blakey glanced back at me before slowly sinking beneath the surface. Was it abandoning me? I slumped onto the grass and wept helplessly in despair. Moments later, Blakey resurfaced. It tossed me a massive grass carp coiled in its serpentine tail, shot me a disdainful look, then submerged again. As the carp tried to flop back into the lake, I snapped out of my melancholy and quickly pinned it down. I gutted the grass carp with my knife, then built a fire to roast and eat it. With my stomach full, I realized my sorrow had eased, and I curled up by the lakeside to sleep. In my dreams, the man who'd been my husband for half a month reappeared, looking exasperated as he said, "I'm recovering at the bottom of the lake, wait for me." About a month. This time, I didn't forget the dream. Now I understand everything. The husband in my dreams was Blakey, and Blakey is the Serpent Lord. Strangely, I don't dislike him anymore. When he said wait for me, my heart leaped with joy. When I woke the next morning, I was covered by a massive snakeskin shed, which I instinctively threw off in shock. The next moment, I remembered this was Blakey's hide. So my fear subsided and I quickly picked it back up. Nearby lay a simple dress crafted from shed snakeskin. Glancing at my tattered rags of clothing, I decided to wash up before changing. But first, I needed to catch a fish from the stream to fill my belly. The thought had barely crossed my mind when a huge grass carp leaped from the lake, landing right at my feet. Delighted, I scooped up the fish and called out to the lake, "Thank you, Blakey." Ripples disturbed the mirror-like surface before quickly settling back into stillness. After the meal, I stood in the stream to wash my hair and body. Sunlight danced on the water's surface, scattering dazzling sparkles that took my breath away. The lake behind me rippled gently until I put on the snakeskin suit. The grass felt wonderfully soft beneath my bare feet. Living here like this wouldn't be so bad after all. 3 fish leaped from the lake every day without fail, morning, noon, and evening. With nothing better to do, I'd spend entire days sitting by the shore, watching the water's surface. Sometimes I'd wander away from the lake to forage wild berries, a pleasant change of pace. Blakey no longer visits my dreams, but knowing he rests beneath the lake brings me comfort. 27 days passed in the blink of an eye, just 2 or 3 more days until I see Blakey, and I'm growing more impatient by the minute. On the morning of the 28th day, I suddenly jolted awake from my sleep, bolting upright to find myself face to face with a silver-haired old man. Is that Blakey? Coming out early is one thing, but why'd you turn into an old man? No way, you're lucky to be alive. Having caught his eye, the old man said coldly. I froze in my tracks. That voice, I knew it well. It was none other than the great sorcerer. The sorcerer came to our village 5 years ago, skilled in both medicine and divination. He earned the villagers' reverence as the great sorcerer. I've seen him a few times, but he never showed his face properly, so I don't know what he looks like. I stumbled backward in fear, my right hand reaching for the machete hidden beneath the snakeskin blanket, when suddenly an invisible force froze me in place. The sorcerer gave a kindly smile. Little one, I mean you no harm, just bring Zephyr out, and I'll let you go, I stammered. We're just passing acquaintances. I'm not that important to him. The sorcerer's pupils slid into crimson vertical slits, his voice growing increasingly sinister. Zephyr values loyalty above all. He'd even protect his mother's reincarnation. As his wife, he'd never abandon you. Zephyr's mother's reincarnation, the white serpent. Exactly, that's how it should be. Uncle said the black serpent claimed in a dream that his cousin murdered his family. The shaman declared the white serpent and serpent eggs were the black serpent's wife and offspring. He deceived our uncle. My gut tells me a sorcerer must have been behind my cousin killing the white serpent. What's his real motive? To force Zephyr into murder. Why are you trying to harm Zephyr? That's none of your concern. Since you refuse to talk, don't blame me for what comes next. The sorcerer gripped my throat and shouted at the lake. Zephyr, if you don't show yourself by the count of 3, I'll kill your wife. 3, 2, a massive black python emerged from the lakebed, its enormous eyes glowing with an eerie green light as they fixed unblinkingly on the sorcerer. 2 prominent bulges had formed on its head, as if horns were about to sprout. The sorcerer showed no fear, letting out an arrogant laugh. On the verge of draconic transformation, Zephyr, you truly are formidable. Zephyr, fighting would leave us both crippled. Share half your core with me, and I'll release her. With your talent, you'd recover in about 5 centuries. Zephyr wavered, then gave a hesitant nod. My heart burned with urgency. My cousin's experience taught me, when you weed, you must pull up the roots. The sorcerer would never let either of us leave here alive. How can a serpent demon be this stupid? Zephyr, if you share half your core with him, today will be the death of us both. Silence. The sorcerer did something to me. I couldn't speak another word. Fortunately, Zephyr didn't hesitate. He suddenly struck, his massive serpent tail slamming down toward the sorcerer's head. When the sorcerer realized I couldn't be used to threaten Zephyr, he instantly snapped my neck. In that final moment before darkness tipped me, I saw Zephyr launch a frenzied assault on the sorcerer. Just when I thought I'd be forever lost in the void of darkness, I woke up again in the dimly lit stone cavern, but something fell off, to my horror. I realized I was lying within a massive coil formed by an enormous black serpent. Even more terrifying, my lower body had transformed into a serpent's tail. Terror stole my voice, trapping my scream in my throat. The black serpent startled awake, lifting its head toward me before morphing into a dark-clad young man who pulled me into a tight embrace. Axel killed you. I had to use half my core to revive you. Now you're half Yao. Don't worry, once you've cultivated enough, you'll regain full human form. I gradually calmed in Zephyr's less-than-warm embrace, taking what felt like forever to accept my new half-demon reality. Later, Zephyr patiently taught me how to use my serpent tail. 6. After a month, I'd mostly adapted to my half-human, half-serpent form and could skillfully maneuver my tail to accommodate my feelings. Zephyr also maintained his half-human, half-serpent appearance. Several more days passed. At night, Zephyr pressed against me with lingering intimacy, his serpentine tail restlessly entwining with mine. Blair, my mating season has begun. I'd mentally prepared for this moment, yet before consenting, I needed answers to the questions weighing on me. Why did you choose me as your mate? Wasn't it your uncle who gave you to me? Just like that. What else? I thought there was some life-saving favor between you two that I didn't know about. You're such a shameless snake. How am I shameless? Zephyr grumbled discontentedly. I just fell for you at first sight. I remained skeptical of this answer. Zephyr's side story. Axel and I were brothers hatched from the same clutch of snake eggs. At first, we practiced our cultivation together with diligence. Later, Axel grew impatient with the slow progress and turned to dark arts, feeding on human life essence to accelerate his cultivation. Our paths diverged when our principles became irreconcilable. Feeling lonely in my solitary cultivation, I sought out the white serpent that carried my mother's reincarnated soul. I tried guiding the serpent onto the path of cultivation, but lacking any innate talent, our efforts came to nothing. Axel, having committed countless evils, faced divine retribution. Not only was he grievously wounded, but heavenly lightning shattered his core. Unwilling to accept his impending demise, he came to me for help, demanding half of my core. I naturally refused, undeterred. Axel remained in the village as a sorcerer, winning over the villagers while plotting to steal my inner core. The day of the Dragon Boat Festival was when I was at my weakest. Axel incited Blaze to kill the white serpent in the back mountains while personally keeping me occupied. He tried to use the white serpent's death to force me into killing innocent mortals, knowing divine retribution would cripple my cultivation. This would give him the perfect chance to slay me, steal my golden core and extend his own wretched life. Though I didn't take the bait, cutting my seclusion short caused chi deviation that left me severely wounded. When Axel saw I wouldn't seek mortal vengeance, he schemed to have the Wynn family deliver Blair as my bride, another provocation, but I still didn't fall for it. Axel knew I was injured and later ambushed me at the Serpent's Den, though I narrowly escaped. My wounds worsened. Thankfully Blair returned. She didn't abandon me and helped me flee. I just knew she had feelings for me, but my injuries were too severe. I was on death's door. To cling to life, I had no choice but to lure her into spiritual cultivation with me in dreams. Later, Blair asked why I chose her to be my wife.